So welcome to CDM in Motion, New Horizons Community Workshop Insights. A talk that is very, very, very much last minute. So if it appears to be that way, it's because it is. Thanks to Ian Sloan for providing the material, because otherwise I think we'd be doing some version of putting on the Ritz right now for the next 30 minutes. My name's David Shone. I'm Senior Director, Data and Digital Solutions at ISDA, one of the sponsoring associations for the CDM. I'm joined by two colleagues who I'm going to let introduce themselves, just because even though I've known Eteri for quite a long time now, I still can't pronounce your last name.
That's all right. It's too long. My name's Eteri Dvalishvili. I'm a project manager with FINOS. I've been with FINOS for about a little over 2.5 years. I joined right as the CDM was onboarded. So I've been helping with supporting the working groups that we've got going on at FINOS and other CDM activities.
My name is Lyteck Lynhiavu. I work with David at ISDA. I am Director of Data Standards.
All right. So we are probably slightly, if you were in here for the previous session, this is probably slightly a little bit of a, it might feel a bit jarring, where you've just had quite a long, detailed conversation about CDM, and we're going to take a much more high-level view of what's going on in the community, how to get involved, and what other exciting talks you could join today. It might feel a little jarring, but I apologise for that. So if we kick off then, so normally we do the call to action at how to get involved at the end. Today we're going to do it the other way around. So Eteri, do you want to just explain to people how, if they find anything interesting today, they can get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So on this slide, we're going to start out on how to get involved. The first resource that's mentioned here is the CDM homepage. So this is the path to the GitHub repo, as it says. This is where the source code lives, as well as the other CDM documentation. This is where you can learn and read the details on Java distribution, mapping, and everything else. The second thing linked here, or also on the CDM homepage, is the resource page link. So you can visit that through cdm.finos.org or through the main finos.org page. This is newly updated by our marketing team, and it has a great overview of links, PDFs, general CDM overviews, past presentations from OSFF, recordings of past workshops, for example, the CDM object builder. And then we also have all of these videos on the YouTube channel as well. So you can go in and watch all of these there as well.
Just reading that word playlist there, I was just thinking maybe we should get people to contribute to a Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
What it is that they listen to while they're coding CDM. Knowing the group of people we deal with, there's probably a lot of death metal. CDM 101, just to continue then, Eteri.
Yeah, so this is the Intro to CDM course. This is a free course that we have through the Linux Foundation. It was developed by some CDM experts, I think some that are in the room today. It is free, it's 90 minutes, and it covers 7 topics, including design principles, structure, events in CDM, and the other topics. Once you complete the course, you can actually earn a Credly badge. So that's something that a lot of people find interesting. I've done it myself. So we've had over 400 people register so far, just this year, but we'd love for you to complete the course as well. And not just that, we'd also like to hear from you what should be added to the syllabus once you complete the course or before, just to see what could be next with the CDM courses.
Okay, thank you. So in today's attention deficient world, we've started with the QR code, so hopefully you're all now hooked into CDM. The badges are a good idea if you want to share that on LinkedIn and so on. And if you're really into badges, there's little purple stickers down on the booth downstairs just to prove that you support CDM. A bit like going to the doctor and having a shot, right? We're going to talk now a little bit about how we actually organize ourselves. So this diagram, some people like it, some people hate it. I drew it, so don't be too nasty about it. But shows the overall structure, right? So we have three, what I refer to as senior working groups. So there's the steering group, there's the contribution review working group, and there's the technology architecture working group. And then underneath that, we have a number of domain working groups. So the steering group is currently chaired by myself. We put that up for election every year, we initiated that last year, and we'll do so again this year. The idea of the steering group, as you'd expect, is to define and monitor the overall roadmap, which is actually contributed to by the other working groups. It will function as deciding support for various resources and initiatives proposed by the other groups. It also decides matters of governance and the operating model. So just like any other steering group, it meets monthly. Anyone's welcome to join it as per any FINOS working group. We have a technology architecture working group currently chaired by Chris Rayner at ISDA, the International Securities Lending Association, who should be around somewhere today. I can't see him in the room yet. That group works with all aspects relating to the technology and the architecture of the model, so language distributions, packaging, serialization, reference data, a whole bunch of things that, not being a technologist, tends to go over my head, which is why I don't chair that group. But that's where a lot of the actual technology is discussed. We then have the contribution review working group, which has a rotating chair. So monthly, it rotates between the three trade associations who are the primary sponsors of the model. So ourselves, ISDA, and ICMA, the International Capital Markets Association. So the CRWG meets fortnightly and is really the engine room for agreeing releases. Okay, so formulating releases. It also acts as an arbitration group. So if there are disputes or design guidelines required at the underlying domain working groups, then ultimately they will be escalated to the CRWG for discussion. The domain working groups, I guess, is where all the real work happens. So you can see that we have a fair few out there today. Some operating directly under the FINOS infrastructure, so using their Zoom and meeting structure and so on. And then the three associations still have some working groups within their membership infrastructure. As we go through them, it should become clear as to why. But within the FINOS governance and infrastructure, and therefore open to everyone, we have a collateral working group, which is chaired by Vernon Alden-Smith from ISDA, discussing all things, interestingly enough, collateral, but eligible schedules, eligibility schedules, CSAs, margin calls, and so on. We have a derivatives working group run by Lyteck here, again, unsurprisingly, dealing with all things derivatives. We have the two new working groups recently proposed and agreed by the steering group. So we have a tokenized asset working group run by Kieran McGonigal of Tokenovate, and we have the physical risk working group, who you have just heard from the chair there, Johnny Mattimore. Within ISDA, we have two other working groups. We have one for ISDA legal agreements. So these ones are effectively open to ISDA members only. The reason being that to use some of those legal agreements, you need to be a member. And then we have DRR working groups. So that's digital regulatory reporting, which Lyteck will talk about a little bit more later in the presentation. We have many working groups associated with that. It's our main use case, and we'll hear more about it. Those are held within our infrastructure, but are open to anyone. ISDA and ICMA run working groups within their infrastructure around their products, so securities, loans, repos, and bonds, respectively. and can be accessed through their website if you want to join us. We have I'm not going to go through this in massive detail, but we have a fairly complex target operating model, as can be seen by the varying degrees of colour on here. But we have 5 main pillars of responsibility, and what this slide aims to do, and I'm sure it will be available after this if it's not already published on the website somewhere, which it probably should be. The different colours denote who is primarily responsible across these pillars for which actions. So as you can see, the majority of the governance falls to the maintainers of the project and all the associations. So historically, to date, the 3 associations have provided the maintainership for the project. Earlier this year, and you will hear from him after this, we had Nick Mosier from JP Morgan become the first financial institution to be a maintainer of the CDM, which is a large milestone for the project. We want to see more of that happening. FINOS, which is the blue, is very much on the marketing, adoption, and administrative side of things. And then the rest of the modelling, design, technical aspects, really is where we want the community to contribute, right? So we expect more and more that the community actually make proposals for model changes and design, but then also the community acts as the reviewers and as the discussion point. It's historically been very much driven by the association membership, but I think as we have been with FINOS, that's started to mature more and more, and as people adopt, we are seeing a lot more community interaction. And if you want to be part of that, I refer you to the beginning of this presentation and the QR codes. Again, not necessarily going to follow this step by step, but we do have a published diagram on the website of if you want to change something with the model, how do you go about it? So you raise an issue, I'll be triaged and assigned to a working group. So either if it's a specific subject, it'll be a domain working group. If it's something that doesn't slot easily into one of those DWGs, it will likely go to the CRWG to cover it off. The idea is that then gets approved, a pull request is raised, that will also be reviewed by the relevant working groups. Once that is approved, the maintainers will finally review it and push it through to merge and schedule the release. So, okay, we have animation on this one, which I wasn't expecting. Let me just push through. So, in terms of success stories for the CDM, I'm going to hand now to Lyteck just to discuss our DRR program.
Mm-hmm. So, for those who may not be familiar, so the Common Domain Model, CDM, is a standardized machine executable model that represents financial products, trades in those products, and the life cycle events of those trades. So using CDM in the financial industry promotes transparency, efficiency, and innovation. So there are indeed exciting news in terms of adoption and development. So for example, we heard in the previous session about a different use for CDM. And what I'm going to discuss today are 2 other catalysts. So one is ISDA's DR, and the second one is FINOS's OR. So there has been an increasingly large regulatory burden for firms since the financial crisis, in particular for the reporting of OTC derivatives. And the DR, so Digital Regulatory Reporting, is ISDA's solution to a fragmented landscape. So DR is an extension built on top of CDM and is open access code from ISDA. So it is a standardized set of digitized reporting rules and validation rules. So using DR reduces time, resources, and budget for market participants. And the DR results in consistent implementation of regulatory rules. So DR users will report trade data requirements in the same way, which will avoid regulatory non-compliance. There will be an increased, there will be an improvement in the quality of data, which we heard from the keynote this morning is extremely important. So the quality of the data being reported will increase using DR. And lastly, another benefit is that the DR code is reusable and scalable for amended rules and new regulations. So that's DR. The second initiative is OR, which is Open Regulatory Reporting. And it is an initiative under FINOS. So that's the Open RegTech initiative. And this project aims to develop open source tools and resources to simplify regulatory reporting and compliance. So the goal is to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and enhance regulatory oversight through the use of technology. So there's more information on the FINOS website on the Open RegTech initiative. So you can take a look at the second QR code. There's a recommended track today that will take place after lunch. And it is at 1:30. There will be a session that will discuss a guide to integrating CDM and digital regulatory reporting. And it will be presented by Regnosis.
Hey, thanks, Lyteck. And as I mentioned earlier, Nick from JP Morgan will also be talking about DRR immediately after this. Yeah, as it says, there's a full track in this room today on all things CDM. So if that's what floats your boat, get comfortable, put your feet up, and so on. In terms of new things, so again, just wanted to mention some of the working groups that we have. So first of all, the collateral management working group has been around for quite some time. So I'm not necessarily going to say that's particularly a new horizon, but it continues to go from strength to strength. And we see that group expanding in membership all the time. We have the new tokenized assets working group who will be talking, Kieran, I assume, will be chatting, it is Kieran, right? We'll be talking about what that working group does later today, exploring how we can extend the CDM to digital assets, tokens, and so on. And then you have just heard from the physical risk working group around physical risk swaps and flooding and things that I never thought would be part of what I discuss on a regular basis. So that's quite interesting. And I would like to just say that those two working groups are very new in the last few months. If there is an aspect, if there's a part of your world that does not have a specific working group that was on that list, very easy to come to the steering group with a proposal. You just need a brief description of what it is you plan to do. Most importantly, a chair, because if you don't have a chair, you probably will find that the bandwidth of the people already who are chairing things don't have time to chair. So come with a chair, and you are likely to get that working group approved as part of the overall structure. The more, the merrier. And then finally, no presentation these days would go without talking about AI. We have seen members of the extended FINOS community working around CDM, looking for AI applications. There is a AI chatbot out there specifically designed to act as your, guide's the wrong word, but you can interrogate it, read the model and the documentation that is there. It is very much It is useful. It's very much the first stage of a longer set of projects to advance that AI. But yeah, if you wanting to get started, then I recommend that you start with that bot. It certainly would. It'll certainly get you far enough before you get too stuck. Eteri, I think we are going to talk about what else is happening in the CDM community. Another QR code.
Yeah. So this one is for the projects that we have set up for each working group. So you can join the discussions for each working group. So we have 7 that are running at FINOS at the moment, and each of these working groups has their own project board, as you can see in the slide. So you can go and take a look at what the working group is actively working at. It's linked to the PRs, the issues. It's also how the agenda is communicated. So once you go in, we'll look at the next slide. We usually link these project boards to the discussion posts. So we'll discuss that a little more. And it's, so these are project Kanbans, as you can see in the second slide there. And they usually call for very lively discussions from the community. But we're always looking for more opinions from everyone. So if you're interested in coming and joining the calls, we'd love to hear from you. The calls are public. We have a FINOS community calendar, so you can go in and join the calls as you'd like. You can come and participate and just listen in, or you can give your opinion if you'd like. So we can, I don't believe there's a link there, but if you go in the GitHub repository, there is a link to the FINOS community calendar there if you wanted to take a look. And then, so this is the slide that shows the discussion posts. So this is where we post all of the meeting agendas. This is also where the meeting notes go. So after we hold the calls, usually we'll update it with what was discussed at that call. So if you miss a call, you can always catch up by looking at it. You can also take a look at the agenda to see what was discussed. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks, Eteri. Yeah, I find it really useful to find out what it is I just chaired. There's one last one about events. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want?
Sure. So there's a CDM event that we'd like to draw your attention to, which is a workshop on CDM workflows and business events. So the background on this is that the CDM event model provides data structures to represent the lifecycle event of financial transactions. So in the CDM event model, you can represent lifecycle events such as a trade execution, a confirmation, clearing, allocation, settlement, exercise of options, etc. So, and there has been an increased interest from firms in that functionality, so in the CDM functionality to support workflows and business events. And with increased interest comes increased usage and increased scrutiny. So as the result of that usage, there have been like a number of suggestions, some issues identified, some pain points, some questions, perhaps some gaps. So the purpose of this free workshop is to gather the feedback from the community on their wish list, on the items that are blocking firms from implementing the lifecycle event. So there was actually, this workshop is actually a 2-part workshop. The first part actually happened yesterday. And the second one will happen on July 9th. And the group will, the goal of the workshop is to indeed gather that feedback, but also prioritize the items and develop a roadmap that will be used to implement the items that will be the most useful for the community. So please use the QR code, and it will be on July 9th. And do the first, I'll just give you maybe a brief summary of the first part that was held yesterday. So there was great participation. There was good feedback from many firms on on the issues that they faced, on the wish list that they had, and the pain points. So what we're going to do next, we're going to start putting a list of these items and prioritize them.
Thanks, Lyteck. So this is just one of many events per year that we put on. There's showcases normally in February. There's clearly the 2 OSFF events, but we also run workshops and training and so on throughout the year. If there's a topic to do with the CDM you want to see an event on, then come and talk to one of us and we'll see what we can do. So I'm just going to remind you of the 4 main associations that are involved in bringing to you the bright purple CDM. But I'm going to call out some people in the audience as well. So if you want to learn more about certain aspects of what we've talked about today, so DRR, we have Nick right at the back. Hand up, Nick. There we go. We've got Andrew from ISDA here, if you really want to talk about regulation. We have the Regnosis guys, Leo, Lionel, sat there. I think I saw Manuel from Trade Header, but he's obviously left because I'm talking now. If you want to talk about document digitization, we have Mr. Hans, Paul Hans here in the front row from DRS, who's been working with our legal agreement working groups and collateral working groups. And if you just want to talk about the vision, we have, of course, Mr. Ian Sloyan there at the back, the godfather of the CDM. Okay, you'll have to tell me what you want. And if you want a blue sky discussion of what the world should look like, we have Mr. Francis Gross here in the front as well. I've managed to cover 31 minutes of our 40 minutes, so I guess I have to ask for questions now. Does anybody have any questions? Evelyn.
Hello. Nice to see you again. So on the contribution slide, the whole cycle, what's the end-to-end sort of turnaround time? Can you maybe...
It very much depends. So we make minor releases can make minor releases every 2 weeks. Depends on how complicated the issue is and how complicated the PR is. I know it's a bit of a cop-out. My recommendation would be that if it's something significant, that you do your pre-prep with other members of the community working group before the working group to make sure that there's not too much resistance or feedback that mean that you have to go to the next iteration of the working group to get it approved. Certain things which are critical to, say, production will go faster. So, for instance, DRR items, if it's a bug that is required to be fixed because it's a regulatory reporting problem, we can turn that around in a day or so if we need to. So that was a very vague answer that says it could be any length of time. Yeah, I don't know that we have an average. Lionel, do we have I know you've been gathering stats this year, so as we become more organised, do we have an average?
I think on the items that are prioritised, because not everything is.
Yeah.
We're at around 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Okay.
Any other questions? Criticisms? Francis?
Yes, I mean, not a surprising one. I've seen here this morning and in your talk as well, a lot of initiatives happening, a lot of superb developments. What's a bracket? Say you said it, I come from the blue sky side, so I look at it from 50 years down the road, where we need to be. And if we progress these initiatives individually, they will all have to struggle. If you can put them into a context that makes these ideas unavoidable, that makes people see that it is unavoidable, perhaps that will mobilize more energy, and it will also bring together initiatives that will work better together than individually. So how to generate that frame?
It's a good question. I'm happy to take ideas. Yeah, look, I mean, the idea behind the steering group is that we should be trying to move towards one central vision. And it has been pointed out that we have a roadmap that probably looks to this year and next year with the individual things that we know happening. But we do need that. We need a kind of 3 to 5 year vision plan. So we are looking at that. Ian, I think you want to chime in.
Just to say, I think cross-collaboration and integration of other standards is really important. I think everyone thinks that CDM is like competing with other things, and I think the DRR is a great example where CDM is basically a driver to get data into ISO 222 for reporting. So that's a key bit, you know. Working with FIX are associate members of FINOS, that's something we keep talking about doing. You guys are here today from Actus to you know, talk about your standards, and I think some of the things that are going to be presented this afternoon, particularly Leo might talk about the capabilities of mapping different models into CDM. So I think we're building that framework to be able to bring these things together so that people can see that landscape more clearly.
Yeah, go on.
And we might also need to formulate that vision in a language that the people outside the tech community can understand, because I've been working for 25 years with people who think in a whole different world than these people. And we need to connect with those people, because they take refuge in, oh, it's not in my mandate, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Huh?
And now you're free to do it.
More than before.
I think there was a question. No, yeah.
Well, actually, my question was going to be exactly on that topic, which was, I think we spoke some months, it might be over a year now, and I have to admit, I've not been following developments very closely. I'm just wondering if you can give a sense check of where are we at in terms of coverage of loading from FPML into CDM, with perhaps a focus on derivatives.
So we've been re-architecting the way that the ingestion of FPML into CDM works. Leo, keep me honest on this one. We have the Translate 2.0, as it's called, has the open source mechanics are there. We have all of the interest rate, or the majority of the interest rate products are mapped over now from FPML to CDM, and I'm expecting equity and FX at the end of this month, which I guess is this week. So is that fair, Leo?
Yeah, that's fair. So I mean, the loading of FPML into CDM has been there for years. But what's the next evolution is to make sure that the actual executable code for the mapping is being distributed. If you're interested in that, and that's what David mentioned as Translate 2.0. If you're interested in that topic, there is a demo at 1:20 and again at 6 p.m. in the project demo stream. And I'm giving a talk specifically on that subject at 1:15.
I didn't even know I was plugging your session, but there we go. Was there, Evelyn, did you have another one?
So, and securities lending transactions, so what is the vision and what's the plan in terms of, for example, DRR? What is it DR as well? Or?
If I can find Chris, I will introduce you to him, and he can tell you what ISDA plan to do in that respect. There have been...
I can talk a little bit about that. So, David refers to this with Chris, who's running the working group at ISDA. They are looking at two regs at the moment, obviously SEC 10 C1A, but this one, the timing is uncertain with the new administration, and also the SFTR review,
yes.
Which is up. But essentially, the idea is putting CDM to work to those regulations in the same way as it has been done in the derivatives space.
Okay.
So very much looking at
So the
an
plan is
extension.
there. The plan is there. The roadmap isn't.
I would say the intent is there. Now it's about moving into planning and roadmap and which is not there.
All right.
And what ISDA and Chris really needs is members of ISDA to step forward and say that's right.
Definitely.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? In that case, I'll give you 2 minutes back. Thank you for listening to us, and thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.